Hello! A very Merry Christmas to you all. You're listening to Nick RP Green, and welcome to Let's Talk About Paladins, Champions of the Realm. Today I'm going to discuss my thoughts about the Paladins beta, and even give away some beta codes at the end of the video. So, let's get started! First of all, Let's Talk is a new idea for a series that I've got, and I'm not going to promise it's going to be a regular series, because hopefully I might throw up a bit more content than I have been doing thus far. Rather than a Let's Play or a stream repeat or something like a WTF is, this is supposed to be a scripted discussion of a particular game or topic with pre-recorded footage being played in the background. The audio and the video are mutually exclusive to one another. So why am I doing this way? Well, everyone and their mothers does a Let's Play these days, plus I'm hoping to do some streaming at some point, and that kind of covers the stream and repeat side of things. Also, I like writing scripts because I've been proved to not be very good at improvised commentary. So anyway, without further ado, let's talk about Paladins. Paladins Champions of the Realm is a video game made by Hi-Rez Studios. You may remember them from such games as the sci-fi shooter Tribes Ascend or the third-person MOBA Smite. Now, Paladins isn't a MOBA. It's one of the many new crossbreeds of first-person shooters that have MOBA elements in them, and we're about to get flooded with them. You've got Gearbox, the creator of Borderlands, their new game Battleborn. You've got the free-to-play Gigantic, which is the first game from a new developer called Motiga, and of course you've got Overwatch, which is Blizzard's first new IP in 17 years. Some of these games are straight-up FPS MOBAs. Gigantic claims to be one, Battleborn certainly feels like one, and then you've got others like Overwatch, which are more first-person shooters that have MOBA elements in them, and these are often referred to as hero shooters. Paladins is certainly less of a MOBA and much more of a hero shooter. So, in Paladins, 2 teams of 5 players battle to destroy the enemy's vault. Where have you heard that before? Yes, Vault, aka Nexus, aka Ancient, aka Core. Pick one. You choose one of currently 9 champions to take into said battle, each champion having specific abilities that make them unique. There aren't specific roles in Paladins, but it is clear to see which characters are the tanky or support characters, as opposed to which ones are the assassin or DPS characters. Another major difference with Paladins, as opposed to other MOBAs, and certainly as opposed to Battleborn, is there aren't any, or at least not currently, any melee champions, as everyone is ranged. Though ranges do vary, there is a character who uses a flamethrower, and you pretty much need to be in melee range in order to make the flamethrower work. I did find that I struggled with melee in other games, like Battleborn, like TF2. I even struggled using melee in TF2. It makes sense. Characters aren't given a melee alternate attack, as you might sometimes expect, and that does feel a bit odd at first, though considering how your damaging weapons can be modified, and there's no friendly fire or splash damage to yourself from your rockets or grenades, then there isn't really much reason to have an alternate melee attack. Along with their standard fire, each character has 2 offensive or defensive abilities and 1 movement ability, which for most champions simply speeds you up and removes any debuffs that you might have on you. You level up 5 times by getting kills, assists and securing objectives, and at each level you are able to choose an additional effect for your character or their abilities, a bit like the same way you do in HOTS, except this way you choose a card, but I'll talk more about that later. There is a key binding option for a 4th ability that is labelled as an ultimate ability, and this is something that Hi-Rez is going to be adding in the future. And considering how steamrolly certain points of the game can feel, I'll talk a bit more about that later as well, I think the addition of ultimates will make the game a little bit better balanced in the future, giving teams who are on the losing side of a bad situation a bit of a chance to turn the tables. Then again, they could just provide the winning team with a way to steamroll even harder, but I am hopeful. So let's talk about the champions themselves. So from both a gameplay abilities and a fantasy lore perspective, the characters do seem pretty typical. A random lot of champions with bare minimum background cohesion. You've got your typical scouting archer in Cassie, just like LoL's got Ashe or Quinn, Dota's got Drow Ranger. There's a guy who uses a grenade launcher called Pip, same way that TF2 has the Demo Man, or Dirty Bomb's got Nader. And you've got a character who can turn invisible, just like LoL has Shaco and Evelynn, Smite has got Loki, and Heroes of the Storm has got Nova and Zeratul. Even with the mechanics being completely different, you've got Ruckus in a mech suit in the same way that LoL has got Rumble, Dota has got Timbersaw, and HOTS has got Gazlowe, although Gazlowe is a mech riding a goblin rather than the other way around, so that makes it a little bit more interesting. Basically, the game contains very cliché archetypes that you'd expect to find in this style of game, and you have seen dozens of times before, and it doesn't really make much of an attempt to bring something particularly original to the genre. Also, whilst games like League of Legends and Heroes of the Storm's lore does a very good job of explaining why their characters use bows and arrows and other characters use shotguns, for example, in LoL, Ashe uses a bow, Graves uses a shotgun, and this is because technology is more like engineered magic in the world of Runeterra. In Paladins, there isn't really any obvious cohesion between the characters, like there's a witch who can create clones of herself, and then there's an assassin who wields a rather sophisticated wrist blaster and plants bombs. I suppose the characters do have a technology theme between them all. For example, there's a typical knight with a shield, but instead of a lance he has a flamethrower, and his shield actually creates a projection of a larger shield around it. So there is some cohesion to the characters around this technical theme. However, with all that technology and futuristic design, you then have to wonder two more things. A, why are they fighting in a jungle temple or a forest-based castle? And B, why do they ride horses? To me, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever for a goblin in a talking mech suit with miniguns to ride around a very plain-looking horse around a medieval castle. Saying that, why would you use a horse when you're in a mech suit? Just to be clear here, just like in Heroes of the Storm, outside of combat, you can mount a horse, and you switch to a third-person view, to move around the map much quicker, a mechanic that is absolutely necessary on a map this size. But using a horse just seems to be a very lazy way of creating a more interesting way of sprinting. Each character could have been given their own way of sprinting, although this does overlap with the movement ability that also switches you to a third-person view and moves you quicker. So I suppose the mount does provide more clarity for yourself and for your opponents. As you unlock a different horse for purchasing the Founders Pack, a limited chest for $20 or 16 quid that gets you access to the closed beta, there's the exclusive mount, and then you get some card chests. It is clear that mounts are there to be another microtransaction, which is perfectly valid in a free-to-play game like this. Not going to complain about that. But a horse just doesn't make any sense when all of the characters have this futuristic theme, and it just feels a bit lazy if I'm perfectly honest. Obviously they'll release more mounts in the future, same way HOTS has done it, but I would hope the default mount is changed for when the game leaves beta. Something a bit more futuristic, even a futuristic robot horse. A robot horse would make more sense than just a normal horse. I don't mind that it's a horse, but a robot horse would make more sense. The maps also feel quite similar in this respect. A futuristic theme would be better, like a citadel or a spaceport. It would feel more appropriate thematically. Hi-rez seem to have stuck to something quite traditional and gone with a similar style to their maps in Smite, when these characters require a little less World of Warcraft influence in their surroundings and a little more Star Wars influence instead. Again, it is only in beta, so presumably there are going to be more maps in the future, but right now there's a bit of problem with the cohesion of it all. On the subject of maps, these ones, as I've suggested, seem very generic and rather bland and empty. You've got 2 bases, one for each team, both consisting of 2 gates and a vault, both guarded by turrets, a bit similar to Heroes of the Storm in that respect. And then there's a very large space in between. It's got 3 clutch points, each of them having a capture point, and surrounded by various forms of elevation and cover. The idea being in the Siege game mode, which is currently the only game mode, that a capture point spawns at random in one of the 3 designated locations. The teams fight to capture it, and when one is successful, a large siege weapon is spawned that travels to the enemy base and attempts to destroy a gate, or ultimately the enemy's vault. The defending team can attack the siege weapon to destroy it quicker, whilst attackers attempt to protect the weapon and can also freely attack the gate or vault to destroy that quicker. It should be noted the siege weapon is automatically destroyed if it is successful in destroying an enemy gate, so therefore you need to have at least 3 captures in order to win, with 2 siege attacks usually guaranteeing you the destruction of a gate. Now the maps are reasonably large. Compared to TF2, you're looking at something larger than an average control point map, but much quicker to converse thanks to mounting. The thing is, there's a lot of open space in between the bases and the capture points, and travelling from your base to a control point can take a tedious amount of time. When most of the fighting, and certainly most of the interesting fighting, takes place in these designated clutch positions, the vast spacing between becomes nothing more than padding to allow the defending team more time to get some damage down on the siege machine. This padding could easily be eliminated, and the game balanced for it by making the siege machine move slower, and in the case of getting people back into the fight, just making respawn times slightly longer, although I'd argue that respawn times at the moment are a bit too lengthy, so maybe keep them as they are, but make the map a bit smaller, and that would be a pretty good balance fix. Currently, if you have the upper hand on a capture point, it does feel difficult for the enemy team to stop you from taking it, as respawn time and map size prevent your team from having enough time to mount a decent assault and retake it. More often than not, it just tends to be everyone has one fight over the point, and whoever wins instantly takes it. Additionally, it takes a lot of effort to destroy a siege machine, and very little effort to destroy a gate, and I think a balance tweak in that regard, along with some more varied battlements around the gates, would provide a bit more interesting fights, rather than the simple bullet hell and open space that it currently is. In general, the maps do need fleshing out a lot more. Each needs a lot more character, and I don't just mean from a visual design point, but from a gameplay design as well. The battlements, cover and zoning points need much more variety and need to be much more deliberate. Every piece of cover, every corridor, every elevation needs to be placed there for a reason, and right now it just feels like 50% of it has been specifically placed and 50% of it is there just for the sake of it. So, if Paladins has a unique selling point, it would probably be its levelling and augment system. There's no pre-match loadout in the game like runes or masteries, and there's no in-game item shop just like traditional MOBAs have, but Paladins uses a similar system to Heroes of the Storm and Battleborn in that you choose what bonus effects you want when you level up. Whilst Battleborn only gives you one of 2 choices per level, and HOTS unlocks more of its levelling options the more you play each character, Paladins requires you to unlock effects in the form of collectible cards, which are then chosen in-game. Cards are specific to each character and each level, and might affect your basic attack, one of your abilities, or how fast you move whilst mounted, to name just a few ideas. Every card also increases your health by a specific amount and has a power level that increases your overall damage and your regen. Finally, when you die, your cards go on cooldown, each level of card having a specific cooldown, giving you pockets of vulnerability for the enemy team to take advantage of. Collecting cards is how you progress in Paladins, and where the theory crafting is realised. Every champion is currently available to play from the get-go, though with only 9 champions currently, I think you'll probably be required to unlock champions when the game leaves beta. You can level up characters by playing as them, the same way you do in HOTS, and your profile has an overall level, just like in HOTS. But currently the only rewards for levelling are to unlock more cards, so currently card collecting is pretty much the sole means of progression, other than for progression's sake. I like this, as I've always liked having some sort of collectible goal to work towards. It makes you want to play, it gives you a reason to keep coming back, unlike in Dota 2 where every character is available from the start and there are no strategic advantages to having played more of the game aside from just having experience of playing the game. Or at least that is to the best of my knowledge. I've not played much Dota 2. In LoL, I like that I've had to collect every champion. I've only got 4 left to go. It's a great form of progression, as limitation makes the game simpler for the new player and gains more substance at a rate that is trackable. Cards in Paladins allows you to tweak a champion to your liking, but doesn't throw every augmentation at you all at once. It's nicely balanced for the new player and gives you more stuff as you get more experienced. I think it's a really promising system, and it gives hi-rez a lot of room to balance characters and introduce new mechanics to existing champions alongside releasing new champions. It is important to note that you cannot simply unlock or purchase specific cards though. Leveling up and completing your first win of the day awards you with champion or radiant chests, the former unlocking 1 random card and the latter unlocking 5 random cards. Radiant chests can also be purchased using in-game coins or the game's premium currency, which is called crystals. A radiant chest costs 50 crystals, and as crystals become cheaper the more of them you buy at once. 50 crystals can be valued at anywhere between 57p to £1, or converting that roughly 87 cents to $1.52. I can't really take any issue with this. The game is free to play after all, and this is likely to be the place where hi-rez is going to make most of its money. Though after about a dozen games, I'm halfway to being able to afford a radiant chest with the in-game gold. And I imagine when levelling up becomes a lot less frequent, the card intake will slow rather significantly. As a final note, there is a card crafter as well. The cards that you unlock through the chests aren't guaranteed to not be a card you already have. You can combine 4 of any duplicate rarity to craft a random card of the next rarity, or combine only 3 of any duplicate rarity to craft a random card of the same rarity, and that card will be guaranteed to be a card you don't already own. Again, perfectly sound system. Would be nicer if every card was unique, but again, hi-rez do need to make some money somewhere. My only small gripe with the card system is the rarity names, in that each rarity becomes available in-game at a specific level. So at level 1 you pick a speciality, at level 2 you pick a common, level 3 a rare, level 4 an epic, and at level 5 you pick a legendary card. So why give the rarities different names, and why not just call them level 1 cards, level 2 cards, level 3 cards, so on and so forth? I only worked this out whilst I was writing the script for this video, and this is likely to confuse new players. It's only a slight nitpick. Actually, I have one other slight nitpick. Radiant chests, that's fine, but I would have given the champion chests a different name, only because the characters are referred to as champions, and naming these chests champion chests suggests that you'd be unlocking a champion by buying one rather than unlocking a card. It didn't confuse me, but again, it does just seem like something that could be confusing for no good reason. I'd call it a card chest or a basic chest or anything, just not a champion chest. But as I said, I do like the card system. It's very interesting, and I think it will be a good unique selling point for Paladins. So let's try and come to some sort of conclusion. Paladins is good-ish. It's okay right now, but it is only in beta, and I guess that's okay-ish. Alright, right now Paladins feels like it's more in its alpha stage than its beta stage. There's the promise of a really good game there, but it needs a lot more fleshing out. A lot of the game feels like it's been made using cookie cutters, and right now it's just a poor man's Overwatch. The lack of ultimates, which we know will be present at some point, the laziness of the maps and the mounts, and the cards using placeholder images, which I presume are recycled from Smite, but don't quote me on that, I'm just guessing. All these things make the game feel extremely unfinished and a rush to make something to fill the current popular trend. And this surprises me, not because it's 2015 and this is pretty much what everyone is doing these days. Hey, did you hear that Epic, makers of Gears of War, have now announced a new MOBA? I know, right? It's surprising because it's hi-rez, a company that not only has made several free-to-play video games before, but it already has a MOBA to its name. Considering how big Tribes and Smite have become, I would have expected hi-rez to have this beta a bit more fleshed out, considering they have plenty of experience in this area. I'm not expecting tons of lore or hundreds of characters and a dozen or so maps, but I was expecting a little more content and a little better quality content. And it's a shame because the mechanics are there. There is a good game at its core, but for me, it's got a lot of work to stand out in this current market. The card system is neat, but right now there isn't anywhere near enough there in the game right now to make this game stand out from the likes of Overwatch or Battleborn, or even breaking some of the whole Team Fortress 2 still has. All it has going for it is that it's free to play, and I honestly don't think that that is going to be enough. Oh, and one final note about the game: who or what or where are these Paladins? The game is called Paladins, and there is no mention of any Paladins in the game whatsoever, as the characters you play are referred to as champions. There isn't even a typical Paladin character. There's no Uther or Taric style champion whatsoever. There's a healer and a couple of tanks, but no Paladin. Why is the game called Paladins when there are no Paladins? Anyway, that's me done talking about Paladins. Thank you very much for watching today's Let's Talk About. Before I finish, I did say that I have 2 beta codes for Paladins to give out, and despite my criticisms, it is worth a go. Honestly, the main reason I'm still playing it is because I'm actually good at it. Compared to Battleborn, which I really struggled with, and even Smite I struggled with, I think I struggle at landing skill shots in first person. I don't come from an MMORPG background either, so using WASD to move and then reach for numbers to use skills, it seems very alien to me, and particularly after so much League of Legends, it's difficult to switch from that. Paladins has been a much easier point of entry for me into hero shooters, and there is a very good chance that you'll enjoy it too. To grab one of these codes, all you have to do is leave a comment below letting me know what your game of the year for 2015 is. 2 winners will be chosen at random before the year is out. Like or subscribe if you like what you've seen. Good luck and thanks for watching. Hopefully I'll be starting some semi-regular streaming at some point. I might even stream some Paladins. So keep an eye on twitch.tv/NickRPGreen to see that too. Till then, see you next time.
Double kill.